Hello and welcome to another bookish corner of the internet. My name's Harriet. Today I'm going to be talking through the books that I read in the month of March. Now with a couple of these books I have actually done proper reviews for them before this video is going up, so if I have done that I will leave them linked down below so you can check those out. But yeah, let's get into it. Now I managed to read most of the books that I put on my TBR for this month, but there was a kind of wild card thrown in here at the last minute, so I didn't get to read all of them, but I did read some amazing books. And one of the first books that I read, or I should say the first three books that I read, are these three novels by Ursula Guin from the Hainish cycle, which is her science fiction cycle. I have spoken about this series and this author so much on my channel, and I will be doing a in-depth review for this that is spoiler free as well, so I'm not going to say too much. But basically there are three books inside this book, and this edition is called Worlds of Exile and Illusion. The books that are in here are Rocannon's World, Planet of Exile and City of Illusions. So there are three books. This edition does not have that many pages, but the writing is tiny. So if you did buy these books separately, they're all around about the 200-300 page mark. So I'm going to count them as three books rather than just the one. But they are all science fiction based. I will say that they have got more kind of fancy undertones to them, but I will talk through the three books separately. Again, I'm not going to get too in depth with this because I have got a full review coming up very soon, I promise. So as a very brief synopsis for the first book, which is Rocannon's World, we are following these three humanoid species that are all together on this one planet. They don't really get on, they've got their differences and they like to live their lives in different ways, but then when the planet is invaded they have to work together to fight this one enemy. So pretty much like a typical fantasy or science fiction plotline, but this book was written a really long time ago, so it's so hard to know if this was the first time it was done or if it had been quite popular back then. It's really hard to know, but I always love Le Guin's writing. I feel like the characters are super well developed and that did not change in this book. You can kind of tell that it's one of the first novels that she did write. I wouldn't say there are necessarily like teething problems or anything like that, still written extremely well, but it's not as beautiful and poetic as her later works. So she seems to be kind of finding her footing with this one, but I did really enjoy it. I found it very entertaining. I flew through it, so of course it gets a 5-star rating from me. I just love this author's writing so much. But then the second book, the plotline was actually quite similar, so I ended up feeling a little bit not bored, but a bit disheartened that I was reading something so similar so soon after the book that was similar, if that makes sense. But the second book, so Planet of Exile, we're following an Earth colony that's been stranded on a planet and they don't get on very well with the native species that live on that planet, and then they are under attack from a different species. So you can see that the plotline is very similar to the first book, and having literally just read the first book, going straight into this one after that was just a little bit meh, you know, but I still really enjoyed it, and again Le Guin made it very interesting and very entertaining. So that one got a 4-star rating from me, and then the third one was another 5-star. It was fantastic, it was fast paced, there were plot twists in there which I didn't expect, but that one is City of Illusions, and this is definitely like the most intense and honestly the weirdest of the three. We are following this kind of, again, humanoid alien who wakes up and isn't entirely sure who he is, why he is where he is, or what on earth he is doing. So he goes on this massive journey to find out who he is and what happened to his memory. And it's just very interesting. There are so many different species in here, so many different characters, and you don't know who to trust. Very twisty, which usually isn't Le Guin's kind of thing. That's not what she usually does. But I think she did a really good job of it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, that one was a 5-star. So I would say overall, even though that second book in here did let me down, I would definitely reread this whole thing, so it would get a 5-star overall, but I thought I'd give you a breakdown of the three books anyway. Especially if I'm going to say that I read 3 books, when technically that is only 1 book. The next book that I read, I haven't actually got with me because I have given it to someone to read, and that is The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. So in this story, it's kind of like a dystopian island, not necessarily the whole world, which I found very interesting. But yeah, we're in this dystopian setting, and our main character, who remains unnamed for the entirety of the story, is living in this society where things disappear, and they don't just fade from existence, they fade from your memory, and you are responsible for getting rid of the physical side of that object. So say books disappeared, you would have to burn all of your books, and then eventually you would forget them in your memory as well. It's never fully explained why this happens, and that is kind of my gripe with the story. But yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. So continuing with the plot, someone that she works with, it turns out that they don't actually forget the things that disappear, so it's about them communicating and working with each other and just how they kind of survive in this dystopian society. And it was extremely interesting. I really liked the concept and I really enjoyed the end of this book. It was really gruesome and quite dark and also very strange, but I really enjoyed it. I just wanted more from the book. I wanted it to go further, I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to learn about why the society was the way it was and how it was founded and when it started. And unfortunately I didn't get that, so I couldn't give this a 5-star rating. However, I did really enjoy it and I would definitely recommend it for people that enjoy kind of dystopian novels. So yeah, I got a 4-star rating from me. The next book is another that I'm not going to talk much about because I have reviewed it before on my channel. I'll leave the link to that down below, and I'm sure the person I buddy read this with is probably maybe going to do a wrap-up or review of it. But that is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Guin. I reread this and it was part of a buddy read with Rachael's Reading Nook, whose channel I'll leave down below so you can go check them out. They're amazing. Yeah, it was a reread for me. I have wanted to reread this ever since I first read it because I knew that I would understand it a bit more. And that is definitely true. So this book, we are following our main character who's come down to this planet where the, again, humanoid alien species that live there, they are androgynous, so they remain sexless until they reach Kema, and then they either go to male or female in order to mate and reproduce. And he's gone down there to try and strike an allegiance for this kind of intergalactic federation that he is part of, and it's all these different humanoid species coming together to just bring the planets together, the species together, and to fight off any evil or opposing factions. So it's a very interesting concept, and when this was written, these kind of ideas that are discussed within this book were not really ever spoken about, so it was definitely groundbreaking and it is a beautiful read. I obviously thoroughly enjoyed it. I really hope that Rachael enjoyed it as well. I know she was telling me that she did. But it's so hard when you introduce someone to your favourite author, you always want them to love them so much, and maybe that isn't the case, but I had a wonderful time rereading it and it still stands as a 5-star rating for me. If anything, I found it more of an emotional read this time around because I could focus in on those characters more than the storyline. So yeah, it's always worth rereading books, even if you've read them many times before. You never know what kind of experience you're going to get. And now it's time to show you that wild card that knocked off 2 books from my TBR because it was massive, but I knew that I wanted to read it as soon as I got it. So that is Wildcat by JP Harker, and this is the first book in the Caledon saga. Now, the author did reach out to me on Instagram and asked me if I wanted to read this and get a copy sent to me for free so that I could review it like a fair and honest review. Now, that doesn't involve my booktube channel, so this is completely off my own back, me talking about this book, but I really want to talk about it because I bloody loved it. It was amazing. So in this story, we are following Rachael, and she is conflicted about giving up the life of a warrior in order to become a wife. So that's kind of where we start with the story, and then it's following her journey as she learns to balance these 2 things. But what happens when things become unbalanced, because there is a huge war starting up, there's a lot of tension between these different clans and factions. It's very reminiscent of really old societies and clans within Britain, which I really enjoyed because I'm super into my history of Britain at the moment. But yeah, it's literally just a slice of life of this person and the horrendous, horrific things that she has to go through, how she grows as a person and how she creates her own family, looks after the family that already exists, and just these different situations that she gets into, and it is super gruesome. I will say there are quite a few content warnings for this, so there's definitely some mention of sexual assault, there's mention of suicide, there's obviously war, so there's lots of violence and gore, so please keep that in mind before picking this up. It is a very long, very intense journey, but it was everything that I wanted and more. I absolutely loved it. The characters were really well thought out, really well planned. There were so many twists, so many turns that I really didn't see coming. The author is definitely not afraid of killing off characters as well. So if you're used to that from authors like George R.R. Martin, then you definitely got along with this very well, but I cried quite a lot. There were some really emotional times during reading this book. And genuinely, I'm really excited to read the other books that are in the series. So that is always a nice surprise when you pick up a new book. But yeah, I absolutely loved it, and I literally can't give it anything less than a 5-star. And now I'll talk about another book that I can't say too much about because I have got a separate review for it. It is a really short review. It's only about 3 minutes long, so please check it out if you are interested. But that is The Fens by Pryor. This is a non-fiction novel about the Fens and kind of ancient England, the history behind all of these lands that I have known my whole entire life. It's a very personalised experience, I think, this one. If you've lived in the kind of Fenland areas your whole life, I feel like you should definitely pick this up and give it a go. If you're generally interested in the Fens, then I would also recommend picking it up. But if you aren't, you're probably not going to like this at all. But Pryor's writing is just so transportive and beautiful. There is a really good mixture of factual information mixed in with beautiful descriptions of the landscapes and things, and it just inspired me to go to all of these wonderful places that I haven't really spent the time going to, and I just loved it. So obviously that was another 5-star rating for me. This month has definitely been all about quality more than quantity, and I am so happy about that. Yeah, definitely check the links down below for all of the reviews for books that I haven't spoken much about, because I will go more in depth in those without giving any spoilers. And then the final book that I read in the month of March was The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Now, I try not to pick up too many hyped books because I'm usually disappointed. However, this book is stunning. It's so cute, it's so whimsical, it's so fun. If you didn't know the storyline, we're following this caseworker who basically goes to orphanages that hold magical youths and essentially sees if they are kind of safe to continue, but he doesn't actually know what happens to the children after he says that they aren't safe. And it's just an exploration of this person who is almost quite sheltered in a way, and what happens when his eyes are opened by this magical school that he goes to that has really exceptional magical youths that are very unique, that he's never experienced before. And it is just beautiful. It's so lovely. If you're looking for some kind of queer fantasy, I feel like you would really enjoy this. It's a very easy read, so if you're in a bit of a reading slump, I think it's perfect for that as well. I will say that there just wasn't enough tension for me. I just wanted something a bit deeper, a bit more, but I am really, really happy with it the way that it is. But I wanted more. I don't know what it was. I think it was because I read Wildcat, which is so intense and crazy and gripping. And then I continued on with this and I was like, oh, okay, this is a bit slower. So I feel like it's definitely me more than the novel. I know so many people love this and I do totally get why they love it, but I just can't give it more than a 4-star rating, but a 4-star rating is still amazing. I definitely would recommend this if you're considering picking it up. It's just super cute, super beautiful, and it has so many kind of life lessons and things that you can relate to in there as well, which is lovely. So yeah, those are all of the books that I read in the month of March, which gives us a total of 8, which is, you know, it's pretty good. It's not as good as last month, but I was working quite a bit more and I read some really big books as well, which took up a lot of time. Please let me know if you've read any of these, and also let me know if you're interested in reading any of them. But yeah, that is it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!